Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Notre Dame fans, whenever you are listening or watching today's show. Appreciate you guys for making us part of your day. I'm Mike Singer. He's Tim Hyde. This is our Wednesday night YouTube live show here at Blue and Gold, talking some Notre Dame football. Wanted to squeeze in some recruiting topics, but Tim, there's just too much going on this week. So, we're talking Notre Dame spring ball. We're talking some transfer portal news this week. And more, even new facility upgrade news that came out today. So Notre Dame, as it typically is, always things to talk about in the news. We are gonna take a look at some live comments tonight. I'm always reading the chat. Tim, looking forward to tonight's show. We're gonna be joined by Jack Soble, Blue and Gold beat writer, later in the show to talk about some spring ball. Tim's going to preview the spring game. So we really do have a ton to talk about. Tim, I'm just going to trust your well because we got to dive right into the show. Folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content. If you're listening via podcast, please leave us a 5-star review if you like the show. I wanted to start the show with something really important to me personally. As someone who worked with this guy, and I know Tim can speak to this as well as someone who read this man's work for what, Tim, 3 decades. That's Lou Somogyi. And today is the 3-year. I don't like saying anniversary of the passing, but I don't know if there's a better term. But this is he passed April 17th, 2021. The legendary Blue and Gold senior writer. So I have up on the YouTube screen the Lou Somogyi Scholarship, and there's information for folks who, if you want to donate to the Lou Somogyi Scholarship, you can do so with the information on the screen. It's there. If you're listening via podcast, you can donate to the scholarship endowment in memory of Lou. Give 574-631-5150 a call if you're listening via podcast. So, Tim, do you want to tell us about your history reading the great Lou Somogyi?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, I've told this story before where just growing up as a little guy, going to newsstands, sneaking a Blue and Gold and going and sitting down and reading it way back when as a little guy. And then, like I said, when I joined the Marines in the early 90s, my mom signed me up, got me my own subscription. She was like, "No, you're overseas. You can't go to any newsstands over there in Okinawa, Japan, and South Korea. So here you go." And started getting those. Been getting those since the early 90s. And unbelievable. I mean, he taught me Notre Dame football. I mean, I've said this before. Lou Somogyi and Tim Priester, those two guys have been around forever, and they're the godfathers of Blue and Gold, and all those old guys like me out there, not old, gray hair, wisdom. We grew up reading Blue and Gold, grew up reading the Notre Dame history. It's funny. I grabbed a couple, the last couple Blue and Golds, and right on my bookshelf in the office there is an old Blue and Gold book. I don't know if you even know this, that Somogyi and Priester put together on Notre Dame in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Which is pretty cool. And I was looking at that. I was like, God, I haven't flipped through that in a long time. It's right there on my bookshelf. But everyone knows Lou is obviously a great Notre Dame historian. And one of the best things to this day that you guys do with Blue and Gold is the fifth quarter.
In the back.
In the back. I'll be honest. I've done this for forever. I always go to the back page. It's just always an unbelievable article, whatever it's been for just a long, long time of just breaking things down. And it's funny. I grabbed a couple. Here's from May 2012. It's Lou talking about the headline is, "Can the Irish finally get beyond the status quo?" Talking about the Bob Davie to Brian Kelly's first 2 years, how it's just 7-5, 8-4 every single year. Obviously, Notre Dame goes on a 12-0 run that year, but that's just a great article. Mm-hmm. And one of the latest one, I grabbed this one, Joe Alt. There's Joe Alt's cover from last spring.
Show it.
Right here. There's Joe Alt. I forgot to show Joe this when we had him on. Oh, here we go. So there's Joe back to work last spring. So this time a year ago in April of 23, the fifth quarter, guess what the fifth quarter is, Mike?
What did we pick?
From April of 2013, quarterback transfers, part of life at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Somogyi. And he breaks down the 312 transfers in the history of Notre Dame quarterback, right? There's been so many. But I was like, how fitting a couple of these articles recently that are still to this day Notre Dame.
Yeah. And in this business, Tim, we write things and then they're quickly not really relevant, right?
Yeah.
To be in sports journalism and write evergreen content is very, very difficult. And Lou did it with every single time he stepped to his computer. I mean, just so impressive. I learned so much from him just from reading his work. Lou did not, and I only got to work with Lou for a couple years. I'm very jealous, for those who worked with him longer, or like yourself, Tim, was able to read him for so long. But like Lou did not, for better or for worse, like think a whole lot of himself. He would get on himself for any small mistake. Thought that his work did not deserve the main spot on the site. He would call me up at 10 o'clock. Hey, Mike, that's my Lou voice. Hey, Mike, I'm about to post a women's basketball story, but I want your Lucky Charms article to have the main slot. So can you please make sure that stays the top spot in the carousel? I knew every single night at 9:30, if I got a call from Lou, I just stopped answering because I knew exactly what it was going to be. And his women's basketball article would get much more readership than mine. So sometimes I would still answer and say, sure, Lou, and then I just wouldn't. And then I wouldn't answer his calls. And you know what? I'm glad that I did it. Because you know what I listened to today? Voicemails from Lou in 2020 and 2021. I just got to hear Lou's voice for a little while. That made my day. So anyways.
One last thing, obviously, I mean, you got the YouTube up and running when COVID hit. And
it was so freaking good, man.
No, exactly. So the YouTube, I mean, YouTube was always out there and whatnot. YouTube obviously blew up when COVID hit because that's where people went for content and whatnot, just start doing things. But there's old videos, some old ones that are like 8 years and then nothing in between, so to speak. And one of the best videos for everyone out there, go on YouTube and just type in Lou Somogyi 2014 Northwestern. The Northwestern game, everyone who's watching it, watch that game. Remember, it was just ridiculous. Brian Kelly went for 2. All he had to do is kick a PAT, and they're up by 12, and he went for 2. They didn't get it. And Lou Somogyi just breaks down. Obviously, he's an alum. And he wants to just scream into the microphone like, what the hell are you doing? And unbelievable. That's just one of my favorite little videos he did back in 2014. It's still on the page. You can still watch it from, because they did a bunch of post-game stuff back in 14.
Yeah.
No, he was a blast. Great to read. Still great to read. So many unbelievable things for everyone out there. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe because you're going to have Lou Somogyi in every single article in the fifth quarter, and it's well worth it as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. So again, folks, you can here. I'll actually just show this on YouTube. If you want to donate to the Lou Somogyi Scholarship Fund, which benefits an order of priority South Bend area students who transfer to Notre Dame from Holy Cross College, which is what Lou did. Any student who transfers to Notre Dame from Holy Cross College, so a non-South Bend resident, and then any Notre Dame student that has a financial need if the first two can't be met. So the website is giving.ndu/Somogyi. If you just go to that link, I think it's pretty much just done for you at that point. Look, the Lou Somogyi Scholarship's already done. It's already clicked. You just put in the amount, fill out your information, and that's that. So again, that website was giving.nd.edu/Somogyi. So we could spend a whole hour on Lou Somogyi. Miss that man very dearly. So yeah, folks, 3 years ago today he passed, and yeah, it could get into that and just what that day was like, and a lot of tears that weekend, and it was very somber, and but yeah, we will move along to tonight's show, Tim, to go from talking about Lou Somogyi to punter news. Yes, folks, for a first time on the Notre Dame football show, Pod Like a Champion here, we're talking about punter news. And Bryce McPherson hit the portal. Was Notre Dame starting punter last year, Tim? I feel like if you don't think about the punter play, that means the punter's doing a good job, right? I can't think of any like really bad punting moments. I'm sure I'm about to get roasted in the YouTube comments for that, Tim, but he was fine last year, right?
He was solid. Nothing, nothing great, nothing spectacular. Some of his stats, he didn't have the greatest hang time. Like when you start diving into PFF, he was really low ranked in some stuff, but he wasn't shanking them and things of that nature. Just a solid punter, nothing out of the ordinary. So
what was your reaction to this news? Because I don't know if you've seen kind of my take on this. And I'll be honest, I haven't really been calling up sources a ton to get the insight here. Because to be completely honest, if I'm going to call up sources, I'd rather ask about things that aren't a punter. So I have a take on it.
Sure.
But I want to hear yours first, Tim. Why? You have a starting punter who was good last year. Why are you losing him to the portal?
Man, I'll be honest with you. I thought a little selfish here. Like, okay, you got 85 scholarship. Literally, my first thing was like, okay, since Freeman's here, he's not giving scholarships out to anyone. So if he's got someone, down there in one of the halls that's walking on, or heck, they got a dude from the Army. Mike, they got a guy who last punted in 2015. So you want to talk about 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th year?
He's my age, dude.
COVID years. You got a guy who had spent, which I forgot all about him, when he came aboard. Now he's the name of the week. So he last kicked in 2015. So if he's out there and he's punting 40 yards, McPherson's punting 40 yards, Freeman's probably, I could save a couple $100,000 and save that spot for a DB, a D end. If anyone wants to listen, please use it for a D end. But that's what I first thought about. Like, he's just cleaning house, so to speak, getting down to 85, rolling from there. But he's not like he's an All-American kicker and looking to future NFL and whatnot. Seriously, I was, I don't know what you said. I haven't read anything.
It's very, very similar. And here for folks watching on YouTube is Eric Goins. He's listed as a graduate student / senior, maybe senior citizen. He's 30 years old.
Okay.
He's 30.
That's awesome.
So
number 90. Oh, this is great.
Yeah, 90, representing his age. But seriously, my take on that. So someone just in the YouTube comments, I think it was Jay Carr, said he just got beat out. No scholarships for specialists. They do kicker, right? We're having a new kicker every year. But punter, John Sott, I think, was a walk-on.
Yeah, walk-on.
The thing is, I think it's punters and long snappers. It's walk-ons. And I think they'll do the 1-year rental for a long snapper, unless you have, Vincent who can be here forever. That would be great. But yeah, so it's to me, it shows that Notre Dame is not putting punters and long snappers on scholarship. The last punter Notre Dame has not signed any other underclass. They don't do underclassmen.
No.
Okay. Let me start over here. Notre Dame hasn't signed any scholarship specialists since Freeman became head coach. McPherson in the 2022 class kind of got grandfathered in as the Kelly recruit, but otherwise they're just not doing it. So there you go.
He's got a philosophy. They're recruiting a philosophy. This is what we're going to do this day and age. Freeman came aboard, obviously, boom, when everything changed with the portal, and now it's unbelievable roster management 12 months a year. So it's like, hey, this is how we're going to use our 85 spots, our walk-on spots. Stick to it. That's the way I look at it. So it was a good conversation that they had. Maybe he was struggling in practice, and they had a nice little chit chat and went from there, and life happens. No, I was stunned because, here we are, Mike, as we're talking about, how many times we have this conversation? Well, we're fans. Oh man, Notre Dame's got the 85. they're going to get the 85. That's never an issue at Notre Dame. So this was not one I think we had on the 5 or 6 transfers,
just
right?
because you don't think about it. You just don't think about it.
No,
But it makes sense when you do think about it.
Yes.
So Notre Dame has Eric Goins, I would assume, is the guy. Maybe they bring in, it's not like at quarterback where you need to bring the guy in early. It's a punter. So you could bring him in this summer.
No, I was going to say real quick, they're offering Ivy League guys to come aboard. A bunch of walk-on guys that are, got a year of eligibility come Notre Dame.
John Sott, just like
exactly. And they're offering a bunch of DBs. So boom, I'm sure there's a kicker out there from Cornell and Yale. Come on, kick for a year.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, so. And then one of the Salerno brothers, I believe Chris Salerno is still on the team, and I believe there's one other. So yeah, that's the most punting talk we've had at Blue and Gold. In quite some time. Before we dive into the next part of our show, we're going to hear from our sponsor over at Augie's Locker Room. So, folks, you know the deal. If you're in town for a Notre Dame sporting event, or you're local, or you're driving through, whatever the story, whatever your case is, you got to make time for Augie's Locker Room, which does have a new location at 1733 North Ironwood Drive in South Bend, right down the street from Notre Dame. You have a wide selection of Notre Dame Stadium pieces, jerseys, helmets, autographs, and one-of-a-kind Rockney items. Even have exclusive Joe Montana signed items and famous sculptor Jerry McKenna's replicas of the Brown statues around the stadium. And Augie gets new stuff in all the time. If he doesn't have it in store, he can go find it for you. So visit Augie, 1733 North Ironwood Drive in South Bend, and check out the vintage helmet display dating back to 1890. It's got some awesome stuff that you're going to want to check out. Augie'sLockerRoom.com for the online store. Give them a call, 574-277-6363, 574-277-6363. Alrighty, Tim. I did want to bring this up. This wasn't even on our original topics for the show. Was this story that the Football Scoop put out, update on Notre Dame's new facility plans. So there was one part of this article. You can check this out at Football Scoop. I wanted to read a couple parts of it. Notre Dame hosts its Blue Gold game Saturday afternoon. Several sources indicate Football Scoop that Notre Dame officials are expected to unveil plans for the new football command set prior to kickoff. So that's pretty neat. And then here's what I thought was really, really good. As sources share with Football Scoop, plans for the new football complex are set to include an all-new cafeteria, nutrition center, coach's office, team meeting spaces, media space, and an enhanced weight room, among other amenities. And then a source said it's a full football facility that's going to have everything except the indoor, which, of course, Notre Dame opened few years ago now. If you've been in the indoor, it looks fantastic. So pretty good. I bet Brian Kelly is upset that it's just happening now, but yeah, tip of the hat to Pete Bevekwa. And I don't know how much this was already in motion before he was the AD, but yeah, still tip of the hat to Freeman and Bevekwa. So yeah, ENC gives a firm comment here, and he says Notre Dame is giving Freeman what Kelly wanted. So yeah, Tim, do you have much of a reaction to this?
No, it's exciting. It's going to be, I bet, an unbelievable facility. Once they get going, everything that Notre Dame builds is first class. So it's going to look great. It's this has been talked about for years. So yeah, this is nothing new. Jack Soble has mentioned in a ton of interviews and podcasts the last couple of years how it's been in the works. Even when Brian Kelly left to LSU, it was in the works. It was still obviously.
Well, it sounds like they're unveiling the plan. That's the update, right?
Exactly. And I think even when Freeman got hired, Soble even mentioned something like, we've been working on stuff. So, but yeah, the plans. It's funny. When I first saw this, I was like, yeah, we should have, created, put this up on FanDuel, right? As bidding thing, how Notre Dame was going to unveil this during the blue and gold game on Peacock, right? So, they're probably going to do it in the pregame show, have a nice little 2-minute drone video of, the spot or whatever and some cool stuff, which will be awesome for television. So, really exciting, huge. People don't, I mean, we've talked about this over the last couple of years. I think it's massive about the nutrition stuff and the meals for football in one area. People downplay this and whatnot. I get it, but I'm telling you, there's a young man with the running back, the Louisiana running backs on campus. Josh Petty's coming up from Atlanta, Georgia, tomorrow, correct? For the next day, the 5-star offensive lineman out of Atlanta. When these guys come from the South and they see Notre Dame, it's beautiful. We hear all the good stuff about it, but then they obviously go back down south to all these unbelievable SEC programs. And when you're trying to pull these guys away from the South, I bet you that running back Simon's like, well, where do you guys eat? Because LSU, it's right here. Hey, I got Chef Joe over here making it for me. Well, we cart it in. It's really good steak, but that's obviously a little overkill and whatnot. But I'm telling you, it's going to be huge because these kids all go back home, right? They go back home and they put on pros and cons with everything. And I think it's when you're trying to steal those 5 stars and you got unbelievable, everything is right here for you. Just it's right here. It's there. You don't have to wait and stuff like that. I think personally it's going to make a difference. I really do. So that's what I'm excited about. So now when his name's Simon, right? The running back, unbelievable, freakish running back. Richard Young last year, the unbelievable running back who went to Alabama. Those guys, same thing, man. Now you're like, you know what? There's no excuses. Whatever you want's right here. So that's my first thought when I see these facilities is recruiting those Southern kids. It's going to I think it's going to be different somewhere.
It helps.
Yes.
But there still are some excuses that are still very valid.
Yeah, because South Bend is not Atlanta, Georgia. Exactly. South Bend is not home.
Yeah, and it's 10 hours away.
No, and I get all that stuff. And all these guys are like, okay, well, how do I get to the NFL? That's obviously their first mindset when you're an elite 5-star in the SEC country. But Notre Dame's like, well, you can go to the NFL because now we have everything. It's just those things rolling into one. That's what excites me when I heard the news was, man, first off, Notre Dame does everything first class. So it's going to be an awesome facility. And that's what I'm excited about. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you for bringing up Josh Petty. I was going to text him and you reminded me. So that's, if you saw me holding my phone there a second ago, that's what I was doing. Real quick, Tim, couple comments here. Tyler Fisher said, so you say you have to get it down to 85. So does Freeman just go up and suggest they need to enter the portal if he's trying to make room for scholarship? There was Carl Reed is a national talking head at 24/7. And that was I'm not going to say what Freeman does. I'm not going to speak for like what he's doing. But you can, that tweet went like viral. You can find that on his 24/7 Twitter account, but something does take place. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot better now that it can happen in the age of the portal and the 1 year or the one-time transfer rule where you can leave and there's no, I mean, when do you ever hear about a player sitting out a year anymore because he transferred? It just doesn't happen. So coaches leave at the drop of a hat. Players are now able to do that. So it makes me feel, I guess, a little bit better. At least they don't get screwed as bad as they used to. That much is for sure. Andrew Gilmore, $5 super chat. Thank you, Andrew. He says, Tim, how is Notre Dame done replacing 2 offense tackles in the same year? Are you a Tosh Baker fan?
Well, we'll find out if we're a fan, right? If he's blocking the edges in College Station, we're going to be a fan.
You're going to rewatch that O-line, D-line 17 times. Tim Hyde, bingo. There you go.
You already got it going. The question, Tim, how is Notre Dame done replacing OTs? First off, I mean, number one, you got 2 guys going pro early. So they're going pro early, which means you're not ready to replace these guys, I feel. And that's kind of, I don't want to say not ready because, well, I mean, kind of in a way with Jack Soble, right? Is he being ready? Is he getting thrown into the fire a year too early? Should he have been a guard? He's got to play tackle. Telling you, man, this all goes back. You and I have talked about this 6,006 times.
There you go.
Yeah,
Tim Hyde,
yeah.
random number.
2019, not one offensive tackle played. 2020, they only recruited 2. Baker's not seeing the field till year 5. 2021, they recruited 3. All 3 are gone before their senior year. Obviously, 2 going pro. That's going to matter, by a certain point through recruiting, because Notre Dame, man, Joel, Blake Fisher are unicorns. They're in single digits when it comes to freshmen seeing the field. This is not normal. So now it's Wagner, Baker. Obviously, Jack Soble is a redshirt freshman. Someone says start Gerby Lambert. I mean, Gerby Lambert to me is Charles Jagasaw. They played in Sullivan Absher. Run again, pass if you need to in the third quarter offenses. So they're not going to be up and ready to play early as we're seeing with some of these guys. But it's tough. I'm not expecting Gerby. Me personally, freshmen should just sit and grow and learn on the offensive line. You don't want a 17-and-a-half-year-old blocking a 6-year senior, RJ Oben, on the edge. Baptiste last year, a 6-year guy who spent 5 years in Ohio State weight room. You don't want freshmen blocking those guys. They're going to get the butt kicked.
Except for Blake Fisher against Florida State.
He was awesome, but Fisher was huge too, man. Fisher lost like 80 pounds, it feels like, from that FSU game to now. But once again, Fisher's a rarity, man, a rarity when you look back at the history of freshmen playing.
The tough thing for Gerby is getting there in the summer for his chances to play as a true freshman.
But we'll dive into this obviously a lot between now and game 1, but the O-line's going to take a hit, and it has nothing to do with players, coaching. It's just you're losing 2 NFL players. You're losing Joe Alt, who's on the Mount Rushmore of Notre Dame offensive tackles. You're going to take a dip. It's just going to happen. How bad of a dip? Hopefully it's not 2021 dip, and it's a little bit better, like 18 with Hainsey and Eichenberg.
So the NCAA transfer portal officially opened for undergrads on Tuesday, I believe it was just Tuesday, April 16th. And on Wednesday, we get news that Notre Dame is hosting a Rice defensive back. Seems like a versatile corner. Trayshawn Devones, 6 foot, 187 pounds from Duncanville, has played, true freshman walk-on in 2019, earned scholarship during training camp, made 2 starts in 2020, did not see action in 2021 while recuperating from an injury, played in 2022, and 2023 had a breakout year. So I will let someone else go through and determine the COVID year, injury year. I don't know. Maybe he's got 2 years left to play. Who knows? But Tim, Notre Dame again hosting this 6 foot, 187 pound corner from Rice on campus Thursday. So Tim, tell us about. Look, Tim. I know you haven't been able to watch his film yet, so we're gonna do that together. So just give us your thoughts on first Notre Dame looking at a corner from the transfer portal. I think this has got a large part due to Clarence Lewis transferring out, and then anything that jumps out to you when you're watching this film.
Yeah, I mean, I looked him up. Obviously, he's had a bunch of injuries and whatnot. I see some people talking in the chat about Duncanville. Exactly, really good high school football. Where he came from. He looks obviously like a kid who played big time high school football in Texas. He could run around and looks really good coverage and whatnot. Had a really good year. I saw some of his stats from last year, and I know people don't like PFF, whatever. I mean, it's just a data point, as Mike Singer says. Really good numbers per PFF. So take that however you want it. It's not like he's a stiff. good solid stats, good solid season. Tell you what, though, man, when I see news like this, Mike, you know where my brain goes is Ben Morrison. That's just literally what is that shoulder? I mean, they're taking another 6-year DB.
Yeah.
So that's the next question is obviously they're going to take an older guy because what are the odds of Hobbs and Leonard Moore playing? Very low because they weren't there in spring, even though Morrison and Lewis were summer guys. We'll see how that happens. Is Micah Bell not? These are just things I was thinking about today when I saw. Is Micah Bell not transitioning good enough at the nickel to be either a backup or is he needed at corner, so to speak? Obviously, Hurd played corner at Northwestern. They're recruiting him as a safety. So, man, the DBs, there's a lot of athletes, a lot of really good football players on that back end. But it's still, to me, it still feels it's that Ben Morrison, man. Still feels a little jumbled of what's going to happen back there.
So I think I talked about this last week about if Notre Dame was going to go into the portal, it was going to be depending on what they lost and who they lost. So maybe on Morrison, but I think this could be both. You lose Lewis, and it's just a good insurance piece if Morrison, if he does struggle or if his return is a bit of a struggle, because if Morrison's healthy, you get Jaden Mickey and Christian Gray, and then Trayshawn Devone's here. I mean, this kid looks really good on tape.
No,
I mean, he can run. He's good size at 6 foot, just under 190 pounds. Seems to break on the ball well.
Yeah.
Like, seems like a pretty good corner. So if Morrison's healthy and this guy's like your number 4 corner, sounds pretty damn good to me. Exactly. Yeah, we'll see.
That's what Lewis was going to be. Lewis was always going to be that 4th corner. So, because I mean, they're not. I highly doubt they're expecting the 2 freshmen to come in and play. But it's a numbers thing too. That goes back. I mean, we'll talk about this down the road with recruiting. That's why this DB class this year in 2025 could be massive because I think Notre Dame needs a huge influx of numbers. They run a 3-corner defense when you're going nickel and 2 corners, but they're only recruiting 2 corners. So there's bodies that are needed. And obviously they've had to go to the portal for that the last couple of years. And here they are now going for a 6-year guy. That's why I was like, if you're going for a 6-year, that means Micah Bell and the 2 freshmen are going to just keep developing, keep waiting. We're going to get an experienced guy, but this is the Mike Singer. I mean, you've talked about this, Mike, where if you could get an older dude, a guy that's some battle wounds on his resume, he's going to come in and help you for the 12 plus games. It's hard to pass him up.
Yeah.
And I think that's on their mindset as well.
Okay. So that's the news there. Notre Dame hosting Trayshawn Devone's, and I'm probably misspeaking on that last name, but Rice defensive back, at least 1 year. Who knows? Potentially 2. I did not really have time to dive into it, thinking about the eligibility, which honestly is I hate doing that, but.
And this guy's, by the way, taken, I think, 3 visits already. I think.
Yeah, he's been active in the portal. So there you go. Okay, moving along, Tim. 5 things that Tim Hyde is really keeping an eye on, looking for in this blue gold game. Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, everyone's favorite streaming service, Peacock. That's how you're going to watch it. And then after the game, Tim and I will be live for, about 45 minutes to an hour or so to recap it. We'll take your comments and super chats and all that good stuff. But here are the 5 things that Tim says he's looking forward or just kind of keeping an eye on the most. So number 1, Tim, the underclassmen QB battle here. You want to talk about Minchie and Carr?
Yeah. I mean, obviously we don't have Riley Leonard to watch. And Jelly, I was waiting for the text from Mike. Why not Jelly? Mike, he's a vet, man. He's played in 2 of these, right? We've seen him in live action in 2 spring games, so we're good with Steve. We just saw him in a bowl game. Let's go watch the fun new toys, so to speak. That's all seems like Notre Dame fans are always worried. We always like the backups more than who's starting, it seems like. But in this case, it's Minchie. You know, he didn't get a lot of reps last year, coming off the shoulder surgery, getting healthy, all that good stuff. How's he looking? And then obviously the taste of the town has been CJ Carr. I mean, you just flip on anything and it's CJ Carr, CJ Carr. You know, heck, the national media was talking about him this week. So starting to go from there. And it's just exciting to see how these two guys are, because what's going to happen in 2020? The insane conversations that were going to take place. Does someone transfer Mike? I don't know how 4 are going to stay on this roster in August. I don't, because you got Riley, you got CJ, the staff's in love with. Who's those 2 in the middle? What happens? So I'm just excited to watch a couple new quarterbacks.
Yeah. Whether like Steve lights it up or stinks it up, I feel like what you believe about Steve Angeli, nothing's going to change your mind. But Minchie and Carr, there's a lot of people out there who are like, maybe I wasn't so sold on Minchie, but now I hear Goolsby's loving him up. So, I'm very intrigued. I think we're very impressionable at this point on Minchie and Carr, I think, is the way to tackle that. So,
nothing against Steve. And just really, nothing against Steve. We've seen him play. We've seen him play in the spring games. Heck, Mike, he was the cover of Blue and Gold 2 years ago. So we've seen Steve.
I wonder how he got on there. Number 2 key for Tim, offensive tackle fundamentals. Now this is Coach Hyde coming out. Tell us what you're looking for.
Yeah, just how those two guys. It's the question that Andrew earlier talking about Baker and even Charles. Just how do they look? It's not going to be overanalyzing, but obviously I'll watch it a bunch. The spring game probably too much, and it's just watching them. How do they move? How do they look? Confidence they're playing with. All those things. We keep hearing so much about, 11 personnel. When you watch Mike Denbrock is really a tight end flex. You're going to see more 4 wides, more trips with the tight end, which is going to put those 2 tackles on an island. And I'm just really looking forward to watching those 2 guys, and obviously Wagner and Apsher. I mean, I love the way, I'm really excited about Apsher. It's really those 4, seeing how they move, seeing how they block, move their hands and feet, and just starting to get your mind right for College Station, what's going to take place that night.
Okay, key number 3 here, 2023 and 2024 defensive line classes for Notre Dame. Tim's just pleading with you. Please come alive here.
Mike, check this out. Yes, please come alive. I wrote this down as I was trying to figure out what to talk about. Next year, Mike, you got Obin's gone, Botello's gone, Mills is gone, Cross is gone. Is Anya and Rubio, are they guaranteed to come back for a 5th year? We have no clue in this day and age. Ford could be in the transfer portal. Gabira. So you got Ford and Gabira from the 22 class. Mike, 8 bodies.
Tim.
8 bodies, Mike.
Tim, we need to worry about this season. We have so much time before this season.
I'm just talking
and you're already looking ahead to 2025. Like, damn, Tim. Like, I wonder if I were Tim Hyde for a day, my head would be spinning. It's like I'm trying to work, and all I can think about is the 2029, backup long snapper. You need to be studied, Tim. You are incredible. You care, and you are into this so much. It's incredible.
Hey, but I'm thinking it's always recruiting, the bodies, who's who. Obviously, this defense is loaded. They're stacked up the middle. I mean, seriously, you're the old pitch, the old baseball metaphor when you're great up the middle. Notre Dame's got an All-American, right, at safety. They got Jack Kaiser, one of the top ranked linebackers coming back in the country, and 2 NFL tackles. We got 2 guys that could get drafted next weekend playing for Notre Dame this year. So they're strong as hell up front. But it goes back to these D-line classes. I want to scream into the microphone, when are they going to rise up and start making some noise? So in a spring game, I don't care about Jeremiah Love going 75. Cool. We're expecting those things. I want to see these young D linemen and see how they do. So, and they're all on campus playing outside of the couple guys that are injured right now. So we're going to see a lot of them on Saturday.
Key number 4, Tim. question. This is like more of a question. Who wins the 1v1 matchups on the outside? So, like, I like where your head's at with what you're looking for in the spring game. Like, how do the tackles look? How do the DNs look? Battles, right? And then on the outside, receivers versus corners, battles. Who steps up? Some things we're keeping an eye on.
That goes back to the Notre Dame wide receiver position. Obviously, there's guys that aren't going to be in the spring game. We got, Harrison, the transfer injured, Thomas with another hamstring injury. It's like, just rip the thing out, buddy. Can you play without a hamstring? We should get some scientists and see about that, because that guy, his hamstring is not doing good. Collins isn't here. Faison's throwing lacrosse balls all over the country. So, they're missing some guys. But I want to see Chris Mitchell. All we've heard is 4-3. I want to see him versus Gray, versus Mickey, versus all these guys. And just perimeter speed once again. It's about matchups, who's looking good outside, and just having some fun. Golden plays so much man. Let's see Gilbert, Cam Williams, all these guys, KK Smith are going to play in this game. Greathouse is a stud. I hope he plays 2 snaps and just drinks water.
Yeah.
We need you in the season.
All right, so going
a little fun with that.
About my little rant a second ago was really a rant. Greg says a coach always thinks about that. Tim, listen, I get if Marcus Freeman is. Tim is our resident coach at Blue and Gold. Tim does not need to be worrying about that. That's my point. Tim needs to be studied, because it's tremendous, Tim. Okay. Number 5 here, the new era at linebacker. So you got Kaiser, who's been around there. I think he was on the 88 team. But otherwise, you got some young bucks here.
Let me take 30 seconds real quick to say thank you to JD and Maris Leofeld, JD Bertrand and Maris Leofeld. Mike, next week, I went, but once again, Tim Hyde, he's going back in time, Mike, right? I think about too many things. Mike, there's only been 6 inside linebackers. 6 inside linebackers drafted since Lou Holtz left. That's it. Not a lot of bodies. I'm talking Courtney Harrison, Tyrell Harrison, Manti Te'o, Watson, Anthony Denham, a couple guys that Goolsby knows about. And then you got Tranquil and Jalen Smith. That's it. So you got 2 guys that could easily be drafted next week, which is awesome. But you've been covering recruiting, the hype on these guys. They have loaded up with young dogs, and just excited to see some new faces out there. And watch these guys run around. Can't wait to watch Kingston. And obviously Bowen, Osbury, Zinner, Jalen Sneed coming alive. So it's an exciting time for Notre Dame and some of these backers.
All right. Ian C says, over under Angeli yards thrown, 78.5. I would take the over on that. Minchie touchdowns, 0.5. I would take the over. If it's passing or running, I think Minchie. And then Riley Leonard shots of him in that ankle brace, 6.5. I mean, I think all of these lines. I think the Minchie line is good. I think the Angeli line is probably a little low. I think he'll hit 100 yards passing, no problem. But we also don't know how much he's going to play. So I don't know. But the Leonard one, I don't know how much they're going to zoom in on the ankle. But the amount of times he's going to get shown, or like they're going to talk about it. Oh my goodness. Because listen, I think like most Notre Dame fans who are watching the spring game are not watching this. They're not really into it. You guys are the diehards. Like, you guys are junkies when it comes to Notre Dame football and recruiting. It's Wednesday at 8:45 p.m. Eastern time. And what are you doing? You're watching this. But your casual Notre Dame fan is not, right? So when they talk about Riley Leonard in the ankle brace, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, we know about this, Paul. You don't need to keep telling us about it over and over and over again. But most of them don't. This is new to them, which is a long way to say they're gonna talk about Riley Leonard so much.
Oh God, yeah, and just
a lot.
We should have done over under of 3.5 times we see Riley Leonard just walking around during the stretching lines before kickoff, right? It's got to be a lot. It's got to be a lot. It's Same thing with, Hartman at the Sun Bowl. How many times?
Oh, well, Hartman's going to be at the game. Hartman's probably going to end up calling the game. I swear, Hartman's going to call the game. He's probably going to get a few snaps. He's probably going to be the offensive coordinator. We're just going to see Sam Hartman the entire he'll probably play some tackle.
Right now, $2 bet. Is Hartman at the spring game?
I would say yes. There's just no way. Hartman is listen, the guy is just soaking up as much Notre Dame as he can. All right, anyways, we're going to bring in Jack Soble, Blue and Gold beat writer here to talk about some Notre Dame spring football, as the last segment of the show. So I wanted to bring Jack on, and, partly because every single time Tim has some kind of talking point about Notre Dame football, he has not tonight, actually, but most of the times then, he always brings up Jack and Tyler's reporting. He always brings up, so I was like, you know what? Let me just put the two in a room together here, at least on this YouTube chat, and let Tim and Jack speak, and I'll chime in here and there. So, Tim, I'm giving you the floor. We got Jack Soble in South Bend, going to all the practices that the media is able to go to, talking to all the coaches and players and all that good stuff. So, Tim, I'll give you the floor, Jack, and I hope you're doing well, my friend.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on, Mike and Tim.
Of course.
Always. Yeah, exactly. You always got to talk about Jack. Well, Jack and Tyler are the writers, Mike, so I got to read their articles and see what's going on and give them a little hype and whatnot. So, they're the boots on the ground. While me and you are just sitting here talking to all the super fans all the time. But, let's just jump right into it. What are, obviously, me being the O-line junkie I am, concerned with OTs or in the DNs, or is it just going to get itself constantly worked out? It sounds, the first thing, when you start hearing about pressures and things of that nature, my first thought is, okay, what is the quarterback? Is he seeing it? Is he adjusting things of that nature? And just wanted to get your take and talk to the fans about that. Is it Baker Jagasaw, or is it just everything still meshing together as an offense?
It could be any or all of those things, and I think that we won't really know until the fall. I think strictly talking about Baker and Jagasaw, I think a couple of the blow-bys were a bit of a concern. They're getting every now and then, it's not consistently or anything, but every now and then they're just getting beat straight off the line of scrimmage. That's obviously not the quarterback. That's not the scheme. That's just they got to get quicker to their sets. It's tough to say if it's a quarterback issue protecting or adjusting protection, because we can't film practice. We don't have any tape. It's just off of our memories at this point. So could be, maybe not. What I do know is that, and Freeman and Al Golden and Mike Demrock have talked about this a lot, is that the defense is just so much farther ahead of the offense right now because it's year 3 under Golden, year 3 under Demrock, and just a lot more returners on that defensive side in terms of returning starters, in terms of those core pieces. Especially on the offensive line, where gaining chemistry takes time. It's going to be tough to adjust for some of those crazy, and I mean crazy, blitz packages that Al Golden throws at them, and that he's going to throw at opponents this fall. So I think what we saw in the scrimmage was a bit of a perfect storm. I think that if they don't get a transfer at offensive tackle and we see some of the same things in fall camp, then you can maybe start hitting that panic button. But until now, it's just kind of holding steady.
Gotcha. So that's going back to, obviously, Denbrock wants to come, and, Tyler's not here, but I'll mention Tyler Singer. In Tyler's article after Saturday, he talked about they're an 11, but it's always a flexed out tight end, which basically is 4 wides, a true spread with the tight end all over the place. So, if we're going to see more of that, does that go back to the importance, obviously, of a Riley Leonard? Because if anyone watches Daniels last year, you could give kudos to all the coaching you want. The dude just takes off, and it's just a freak sometimes when he runs the ball. You can't coach any of that stuff. So is it built in because of the spread? That's going to be an interesting thing. Obviously, we won't know until A&M, which is just a killer as we sit around and having to wait for all this stuff. So I wonder if that's a true hallmark of what Denbrock wants, is just that athlete to be able to scramble and get away from the things. Because the O-line, I said it earlier in the show, people just assume Notre Dame just turns them out. They got great football players, great coaching, all that stuff. but it still comes down to experience and playing time. And we all hope who've been around. It doesn't look like 2021 the first month.
Yeah, and Tim, I think one of you, Tim or Mike, brought this point up earlier in the show, is that like losing Joe Alt, it's like Notre Dame hasn't had to worry about blindside pressure at all in the last 2 years.
No.
I think he's given up 1 sack, and that was the result of Pat Coogan stepping on his foot against Louisville. I mean, even if Charles Jagasaw, who I talked to Harry Houston for a feature story, I mean, he's still over the moon on Jagasaw, and I know the team has raved about him. Even if he has a good sophomore year, he's not going to be Joe Alt, at least not right away. And just based on how good Joe Alt was, probably not ever. And that's just something that Notre Dame fans are going to have to get used to. Not just knowing every single play that there's not going to be any pressure off the left side, because that's what you got with Joe Alt, and that's just not going to be a thing anymore.
No, that's a great point, because obviously he's a heck of a tackle. You can say what you want about Baker. I love the fact that he's stuck around. He keeps working. When Mike and I interviewed Joe Alt couldn't say enough great things about Baker. Like, he's ready for this. He's been battling. He's been behind me and Blake. He's ready. So I hope he has that big 5th year and things of that nature. But it's going to be exciting to see how this O-line, blends together, so to speak. So we'll see from there. But and then I guess the next big thing has been, before we jump into quarterbacks, which is always fun, is, just your thoughts real quick on the wide receivers. I mean, you were there last year. What are you seeing this year?
Yeah, I'm seeing a really, really good Jaden Greathouse. Let's start with that. I think, I dropped an NFL comparison for Jaden Greathouse on our YouTube hit after the game. It's certainly a ceiling comparison. It's lofty. I'm not saying that he's as good as this guy. I'm getting name drop.
It's like a comparison of how they play.
Yeah, just kind of their archetype of player. I'm thinking of Keenan Allen, because he's a power slot type. He's not going to take the top off you with his speed, but he's got enough speed to make plays after the catch. And he just shredded man coverage. And I wrote about this, observing the defense. Like, sometimes I just kind of watched Greathouse and Jordan Clark go at it in the slot, because it's such a fun matchup to watch. And Jordan Clark got Greathouse a few times, but I mean, Greathouse, he's so good at shredding man coverage. He's so good at finding those soft spots in the zone. And the way they talk about him, they think he can make plays on the outside this year as well. And he played outside last year out of necessity. And I think that wasn't the best thing for him. It was just the best thing for the team at the time. I like him as a primary slot guy, can move outside in some of their sub packages. And I think he's going to have a really big year. And then Chris Mitchell, I thought it had a good scrimmage as well. He was doing well in some of those hitch routes to the field side. Going against Micah Bell, a lot of that scrimmage, and I think that his performance against Micah Bell might be part of the reason they're bringing in a transfer cornerback to visit, because I think they like Micah Bell, or they're developing Micah Bell at the nickel spot, but we saw him on the outside, and it just wouldn't be fair for him or for Notre Dame if he had to play there. If you had to play outside during the season, based on kind of how Mitchell beat him. So those were the two receivers that really stood out.
Let me jump in here, Tim, because we were talking about Notre Dame bringing in the Rice transfer. And I know you did the story on that at Blue and Gold with him visiting tomorrow. We went through some of the corners, like, all right, yeah, you got Morrison, knock on wood, he comes back, he's healthy. Jaden Mickey, Christian Gray. That's a really good group of three. And just really talking about outside corners, but you do have Jordan Clark in the nickel. So it's still a fairly deep corner room. So I was curious for your thoughts on just the corner, and including the nickel spot, in Notre Dame bringing in this Rice, this corner transfer. So, like, just the way you see the scholarship chart, like, do you feel like it makes sense to just replace Clarence Lewis here, or do you feel like, oh man, like, maybe it'd be better if they went and if they're just going to take one? I don't know if they'll take a second transfer portal guy. We'll see if they even take one here, but if they go up to two, like, we'll see if that takes place. Maybe it'd be like a D end or something. But, like, do you like that Notre Dame's going after Trayshawn DeVones?
No, I do. And I almost think like it almost kind of raises my eyebrows because I think what they need is like that CB4 spot that Lewis would have filled. And you guys talked about it over on the show. I think Trayshawn Devon's, again, apologies if I'm mispronouncing his name.
Yeah.
I think he's a little overqualified at this point to be CB4 on a team. Like he had a legitimately really good year. I believe Bryce is in the American Athletic Conference now, and like that's a legit league at this point. They got some good teams there. He's getting looks at Tulane and Houston. I think Pete Nako said he visited Colorado a while back, and he'd probably start at some of those places. And I found it interesting that if he wants to come to Notre Dame and be the fourth corner behind Benjamin Morrison, Jaden Mickey, Christian Gray, I mean, that would be a terrific thing for Notre Dame. Because I think Clarence Lewis was a guy where he makes the coaching staff feel a lot better if he's there than if he's not, because he's got experience. He's played in every single game over the last 4 seasons, which, I mean, that's impressive in and of itself. He can play multiple spots, and you know what you're going to get out of him. And you don't have that comfort with, a freshman who's enrolling in the summer, or Chance Tucker, who hasn't really played outside of garbage time in 3 years, or Micah Bell, like I said. And I think that's kind of why that's kind of why cornerback depth, I think, is a need for them.
Okay. Tim, I'm going to throw it back over to you. Tim, I know you want to talk about, kind of Aztec and linebackers.
Yeah, before I get into that, just finish one more thing off of the wide receivers. I forgot to make a little sticky note earlier is we keep hearing everyone's stuck on the 11 personnel. But, Jack, you're at practice. You've seen these guys. If you're an 11 personnel, my friend, how in the world is Cooper Flanagan, Eli Raridan, and Mr. Evans on the bench, or at least only one of those 3? And I went back and watching the Sun Bowl a couple of weeks ago, just doing some prep on Jelly and watching Baker and Charles playing out there. And they had Raridan playing the X, the boundary, as the just giant, tall boundary receiver a handful of times. And it's like, man, if the goal is to get your 4 best receivers out there, how do you have Raridan on the bench, or and then obviously when they get Mitch Evans back? So just your thoughts on those. We don't talk about tight ends enough because Evans is injured. Raridan, they're kind of saving his reps, getting him healthy. Flanagan, I mean, Singer and I love Flanagan, so we're excited as could be. But even though they got all these receivers, are those receivers better than Raridan and Evans? So curious your take on that.
It's tough to say yes, but I think because again, I like Raridan and Flanagan as well. I think Flanagan showed a lot last year in his limited reps, and obviously Raridan, so much hype around him. He's finally back healthy, or at least healthy-ish this spring. But it's just a team speed issue. And Mike Denbrock, and I think especially Tim, you mentioned this in your notes. Mike sent me, like, Riley Leonard is good in kind of a spread, quick passing RPO style offense like that. That's kind of what he thrived in at Duke. And I think having multiple tight ends on the field and, kind of running what Notre Dame has run the last couple of years. And I mean, it makes sense. They're a very tight end centric program. It would almost be, and I say this with the linebacker position when people ask, like, why doesn't Notre Dame just go base 4-3 all the time? It's like, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice in the name of, getting these good young tight ends on the field, that you're kind of doing yourself a disservice in terms of team speed. And I think the receiver room is very deep as well. With Evans, that you kind of brought up that the tight ends are spreading out wide. Like the way Evans kind of made catches on some smaller defenders last year, I would love to see Mike Denbrock kind of get him in the slot and out wide in an isolation set against the trip set. Get him some one-on-one matchups against smaller players. I think that'd be great for them. And if Evans isn't ready for the season, get great for Eli Raridan, great for Cooper Flanagan. But no, I like where this is going with the 11 personnel. I think they should stick to it, honestly.
One thought I have, Tim, before you go again, is you have 4 pass catchers out there, right? Whether it's 4 receivers or 3 receivers and a 10, whatever it is. And we look at this as when everyone's healthy. Remember the Duke game? No one was healthy. So we looking through this as a lens as, I mean, everyone's just going to be healthy all year. And then you forget, oh, yeah, people get hurt throughout the year. So it's like, I don't have all the details of why Clarence Lewis left, but I'm just thinking to myself, dude, there's easily a situation where you're the number one corner on this team and like the team desperately needs you. Again, that's just looking through this from a black and white, like football depth chart pecking order type deal and not, circumstances and different contexts. But injuries can very much impact, this whole discussion of like, oh, you have like 12 pass catchers. You can only have 4 out there at the same time. But yeah.
Well, that's why
I bring to whittle down.
Yeah, that's why I would bring up Raritan because I've gone back and watched a ton of Denbrock, Brian Kelly. People hate when I say Kelly Denbrock, but they're together. Those guys have been together for a long time, but they ran, they were the main dudes in 14 and 15 running the offense, and the tight ends were always spread out. A lot of the same stuff, obviously Denbrock did at LSU, spreading them out. And that's why it's like, how do you not have Evans at number 3 inside and Raritan's the boundary? Yeah. The massive side he is. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some stuff like that. So it's just curious to see how some of these receivers, that's going back to Micah Gilbert, is he the 4th best one on the field over a Raritan when you look at that, if he's the boundary? So it's going to be interesting. These are, camp things as they start to game plan.
Yeah.
From there.
Yeah, no, it is something they're going to sort out in fall camp. And I think, what we can't lose is that a big reason they're in pretty much exclusively 11 personnel this spring is because, 2.5, and I say Raritan's the half because he's been limited. 2.5 of the tight ends have been hurt all spring.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what they have personnel wise. And I think that's a big part of the appeal to Mike Denbrock for me is that, like, he ran a 12 personnel heavy offense at Cincinnati. He ran an 11 personnel heavy offense at LSU with Jaden Daniels and 2 first-round picks at wide receiver. He can do what his personnel dictates, and I think that's a big appeal for me.
Yeah. And the whole question of talking about those guys was going off of what Horka said when he's talking about Flanagan being flexed out. I'm like, well, yeah, they're going to flex out Raritan. They're going to flex out all these guys because they're just their bodies and their size. And Raritan, everyone's excited to see him now that he's, quote unquote, getting back fully healthy for August and just have a huge season. But just, one thing, going off of the nickel, the corner, the kid from Rice is obviously you want to chat about all the young linebackers, and your comment on one of the threads about nickel and Osbury, where you're like, that's why you don't play him because he's getting torched on that film by KK Smith, that's why he's not the rover. That's why he's not playing the nickel, even though he's been practicing there. So I started thinking with the Aztec was, maybe they are going to use Osbury because he mentioned that in an interview. Yeah. But now with this Rice DB and his experience and his skill set is outstanding, there's no need to play multiple backers. I started thinking, well, heck, maybe they're going to play multiple backers in Aztec if they're not confident Micah Bell and maybe some of the backup safeties. But now with this DB coming in, they're going to play 6 DBs probably more than likely again when they go Aztec.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think in that spear pack, for what it's worth, I don't mean to sound like a jerk when I say this. It's a common misconception. Spear is the personnel package. Aztec is the 3rd safety position.
The 3rd safety, yes.
But I think so. First of all, with the Jaden Osbury thing, I think it's a great sign for him because whenever coaches get asked about that, it's like, he's been too good to keep off the field, so we're experimenting with him at different spots. If Jaden Osbury is in a situation where he has to play like a straight up nickel, like a Jordan Clark would play, Notre Dame's probably in trouble because he as good as fast and as explosive as he is, he's not a defensive back. But I think using him in that Aztec role as the 3rd safety who can kind of line up all over the field, who can cover tight ends, cover zone in the slot, blitz all the time. He's reportedly a great blitzer. I like the idea of that, and I think that's kind of why they're using him, or they're having him go through individual drills and get some defensive back work. Because again, like I said, he's just been too good to keep off the field. And what I like about this defense, one of the many things I like about this defense is like they have so many options at all 3 levels. Like when Rod Hurd gets here, they can go spear personnel with, Don Schuler has had a great spring. They can have 3 safeties out there like that. Rod Hurd has experience covering in the slot. They can put if a team tries to go spread, they can have man across the board with Morrison, Hurd, Clark, and Mickey or Gray. Up front they have just so many rush options. Like Marcus Freeman, one of the comments that stuck out was like, doesn't matter who the first team or second teamers are or who plays what position. We are going to put the 4 best pass rushers or our best 4 pass rush package on the field on third and pass. And if that's Howard Cross, Boubacar Traore, Jalen Sneed, and Kingston Viliamuasa, that's who's going to play on third down. And I think it's a great thing for them that they have so many options at all 3 levels.
This defense is going to be damn good, Tim.
Yeah.
I mean, just these names. It's a good group.
Oh, no. Well, you brought them up. And so really, yes or no answer. No Tim Hyde answer here. Does Kingston look like a true freshman?
Oh, my God. No. He is like, in terms of the obvious true freshman contributors, it really does not get more obvious than KVA. I mean, he has the body, he has the know-how. I mean, he's already lining up on the edge for crying out loud. He's a Mike backer. I mean, he's going to be. I made this joke to a couple of my friends. Like, he is going to he's going to be an All-American, fall to the second round because of an average 40 time, and be a Pro Bowler by year 3. I mean, he's that kind of old school thumper linebacker who's just going to be super productive for Notre Dame wherever he goes in the future.
I love it. What else you got, Mike?
Nothing.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks, Jack. Because I got a billion things in my head. Excited for Saturday.
No, I'm excited too.
Yeah, everyone in the chat obviously probably has 60 questions, but no, I mean it seems like a quiet camp. Because I think I said this to Singer our Wednesday before camp started was like, I feel like we kind of know 90% of this team already going in. It's just a couple little spots here and there. And
good thing.
It seems like it's kind of held true throughout spring of nothing really wild, crazy out there. If anything, it's been more of a CJ Carr looks better than advertised. Kingston looks better than advertised. Everyone else is kind of around.
Tim, I like this. This is a great line of thinking. I would say Carr and Kingston were pretty damn hyped up. They've maybe slightly exceeded expectations. Expectations very high. But I like Tim. I think Tim brings up a great point, and we'll end with this, Jack. Like, what would you say has been like didn't really like, maybe not that you didn't expect it, but like a storyline out of spring? Like, for me, one of them's a Don Schuler, and I think that he looks like a freak. What is it for you from what you've seen, what you've heard? Anything that's kind of been like, oh, like this is kind of a notable thing? Because I think Tim brings up a good point again. Like, it's been kind of status quo. Maybe there's a couple things that haven't been.
Yeah, it's been I bring up Osbury again. It's been kind of the experimenting with him on defense and Jeremiah Love on offense. Running around at wide receiver, going through individual drills and some practices with them. And Freeman said it best on Saturday. Like, that's what spring ball is all about. It's throwing something at the wall, hoping it sticks. If it doesn't, fine. They have plenty of time to erase it before the season. If it does, I mean that's a great thing for them to be able to, put Jeremiah Love out at receiver in a sub package if they feel like 20-1 personnel is what they need to run. Or if they have a disaster scenario like the Duke game last year, he could step in. And then on defense, Osbury being too good to keep off the field, I think it's very interesting that those two have that kind of versatility. And I think it bodes really well for their careers that they're doing it so early. And with Love, I mean, it's the same thing as Osbury. It's like Mike Denbrock said that we need to get the ball in his hands, and however we can do that is a good thing for Notre Dame. That's what Denbrock said.
Do you have an idea of how many snaps Love played at receiver during the scrimmage?
When he did it was with the second team.
Okay.
And same thing with Osbury at DB. I don't know exactly how many, but I mean, I did see him there.
Okay. Well, good deal. Well, Jack, appreciate your time. We'll definitely get you back on here soon as we wrap up spring ball. But yeah, man, as Tim always says, you guys do a great job writing about spring ball, and then you and Tyler do a great job recapping practice and everything. And yeah, we'll definitely look forward to your recap video after the Blue Gold game, man.
Thank you so much for having me on, guys.
All right,
You got
see
it,
you, Jack.
Jack. Take care.
All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight's show, everyone. Yeah, really good stuff. If you're just joining us here recently, we talked punters. We talked Notre Dame bringing in a transfer portal corner tomorrow. What else? Lou Somogyi. He passed away 3 years ago today. So we talked about the Lou Somogyi Scholarship Fund and his impact on both Tim and myself in our lives. So, and I'm sure, 5 keys to the Blue Gold game. Tim talked about that. So you can rewind, and I'll be posting a couple of those talking points as individual YouTube videos this week as well. So lock into the Blue and Gold YouTube channel. Kyle Kelly and I will be live Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern time talking about Notre Dame's Blue Gold game recruiting weekend. And you can catch me and Tim on blueandgold.com and our Lou Somogyi message board. Our offer for you guys is promo code UND1 gets you $1 for 2 months. So please consider that $1 out of your pocket for 2 months of premium access. That's all the recruiting information, all of the premium team content, all of the talking with Notre Dame fans that are Blue and Gold writers, and Tim and Goolsby pops in there sometimes too. So again, promo code UND1. Andrew says, great show, guys. I tend to agree. Tim?
I was going to say, Andrew's been asking some questions. When we're done, Andrew, just log on and answer them in the little comment section, and I'll respond. You've had some good questions, and I'll definitely respond to you sometime tomorrow morning.
All righty, folks. You all have a great night for those watching live. For those watching back, appreciate you as well. As always, folks, we will catch you next time.